Welcome to the BowDudes, a podcast about archery and the lives it has ruined. The BowDudes are not responsible for diminishing archery skills or lower IQ.
I worry about breathing.
Shut up and shoot.
And I'm totally lost.
God, I keep having to remember that we're PG-13. Did Prince help you with those pants?
No, he did not. I'm so glad you have yourself to crack up.
Logic and common sense will not be tolerated.
This is a very interesting podcast so far. Welcome to another BowDudes podcast. This week we're at my house on the back patio, and we have Gary and we have Thunder with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And per request of a listener, Steve Crawford, we are going to, I believe, address some blind bailing and blank bailing questions today. So... but like we always do, we're going to start off, first of all, with what we did in archery this week. And we're going to start off with Thunder since he hasn't been here forever.
It's only been a couple weeks. Just seems like forever, don't it? Man, this is almost like old school. All we're missing is a slow kid.
I know. Yep, the good slow kid. I saw he was back on Facebook, but I haven't friend requested him because it made me mad that he changed Facebook pages or whatever. So I guess he doesn't like me.
We don't like him either. That's why he's not here.
Did your feelings get hurt?
No, they didn't get hurt. I've actually talked to him on the phone a couple times. So
how's he doing? I haven't heard from him in forever.
He's doing well. He's got another, I don't know if he's married again, but he's got a girlfriend or something in all these pictures.
Uh-oh.
What?
Put another wager on how long it'll last. I said that out loud, didn't I? I didn't mean to. I was supposed to mount.
You mean the last one?
Dude, 2 years ago.
Yeah. That one didn't work.
I won
either.
the 6-month bet.
I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I won the 6-month bet.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
So-
I hate to hear that.
But I should have bet 3. I would have been even closer. He doesn't listen to us anyway.
No.
What difference does it make?
He didn't listen when he was on the show.
That was
So-
like Hillary. What difference does it make anyway?
Yeah,
So
you said that out loud, too.
That's my only political reference ever.
All right.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So what'd you do in bows this week?
Well, let's see. The one thing that I have kind of started being back on is actually doing some blank bailing and blind bailing. A couple weeks ago, I twisted my knee real bad, and I got through that week at work, and then last weekend, pretty much when I got home on Friday, I stayed in my chair and kept my knee on ice and didn't do a whole lot for the entire weekend. So
Right.
I'd say it's back about 90% now, though.
Did you practice shooting now while you're in your chair?
No, I didn't practice shooting while I was in my chair, but
I'm kind of disappointed, Thunder.
so
That would have been a perfect training opportunity.
could have.
You could have had Toby pull the arrows. I mean, I'm sure that would have lasted for one round.
Yeah, pretty much.
About 7 arrows later, Jim's not in the chair anymore, and his other leg's sore.
Yeah, I had a guy bring a bow over to me to work on, so I worked on that for him a little bit. Been working on building maybe some new hunting arrows, just tinkering around here and there. That's
The chronic
The other-
tinkerer is back.
I thought you weren't going to tinker anymore. What's up with that?
Well, I'm not messing with my bow. I mean, I'm just building arrows. That's what I consider tinkering now.
Okay.
We leave messing with
I did
a
shoot
bow
my-
every week to pitch.
I shot my recurve some the other night. That was a lot of fun.
Talk about that. How you liking that?
I think it's a great thing. It will show you things, or at least it's shown me things that I could never figure out with a compound. You know, like expansion. Because with a recurve,
Expand on expansion.
Can you expand, please?
well, it's once you hit your anchor point, expanding between your release hand and your bow hand to get your release to fire.
Mm-hmm.
Without, just pulling. Expanding it's not increasing the distance per se, I don't know how to describe this on a podcast without, you're how would you describe this? But anyhow, with a recurve, you're not up against stops.
Right.
So you're increasing the tension between your anchor and your body from doing this. You're not doing this. You're just
describe what you're doing.
I have my
podcast.
My right hand like it's anchored under my jaw with a recurve with 3 fingers.
Uh-huh.
And instead of just pulling with my release arm,
you just pluck it.
No. That'll make bad things happen.
You play a band.
You're just
quit, Gary.
I don't know how to describe it. I really don't.
You're basically expanding your chest cavity to make it go off.
Yeah. And on a recurve, you're going to.
So you don't feel like you're pushing and pulling.
You're just.
Yeah, but
do you transfer that to your compound then? Now, are you trying to?
Well, you can, but it's different. Because with a compound, you're at the wall, and especially like on my bow with spirals, that's a rock hard wall.
And they're ready to go.
And a lot of these new bows, like the Elites and Bowtechs and stuff like that, with the binaries that are actually limb stops. So you have to. It's a different movement with a recurve, because you're pulling until you hit the clicker, so you're at the exact same spot of release every time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like with a compound, you hit peak weight before you hit the valley. So all you're doing, you're relaxed in the valley and up against the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a recurve, once you hit your anchor, you're at peak weight there. So, you're not holding.
How do you relax with spirals?
Very, very carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, if you'll remember from years back, Michael said hit the wall and add 1 pound of pressure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always translated that as just enough pressure to keep it up against the stops.
Right.
That's how that was the way my brain, accepted that. Now, with a recurve, you're not holding 16 or 17 pounds. You're holding, on my limbs right now at my draw length, I'm at 34 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got the limbs backed out as far as I can on that bow.
When you expand your chest, though, doesn't that move your bow arm out?
No. One of the biggest things, and it's head position.
You almost have to.
Head position is very critical on a recurve. Your alignment is very critical because you have no peep, right? So you have to hit the exact same anchor every time. Your head position has to be exactly the same, because if you're like this and like this, and you're using a sight, it'd be like having a high peep and a low peep every time. So your head position's real critical. Posture's real critical. Everything is really critical on a recurve.
What are you doing with your string? Are you aligning your string up somehow, though?
Well, you got to have a shadow of it when you're at anchor, right?
Uh-huh.
It's in front of your eye, but you're kind of looking to just the left of the spring, and then you've got a little bitty aperture on that side out here. That's, I don't know, 1/2 inch in diameter or whatever, a little circle that's on there, and that's how you line it up. But you have to make sure. That's one of the things with in the Olympic style stuff, like the finger tabs. They have a shelf that's adjustable up and down that runs on the bottom of your jaw.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in the same spot at the same height every time, and then you're real critical on how you are this way. Because if you're real heavy with your nose into the string one time versus real light, heck, you may be looking a 1/2 inch one way or the other up and down the string.
Yeah.
So to watch these Olympic shooters that we're fixing on watching next week, when they're shooting at 70 meters and putting arrows in the X-ring, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what they do.
Yeah,
but it's cool.
So I'm still trying to figure this out. You just have to train yourself to have your head in the same position every time, because you don't have a peep.
Think about this. Way back, they always said when you draw your bow, that you draw your bow with your sight on the target and blah, 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 et cetera, right? With a compound, that's hard to do, keeping your sight exactly there, because you're hitting peak weight in the middle of your draw cycle, right?
Right.
So as you're doing it, you're going up in weight, and then boom, it rolls over in the back, and you're trying to keep all this alignment. With a recurve, you're building weight as you draw the bow. So it's a little, even though you're holding more weight, it's almost easier or simpler to keep your alignment correct, or it seems like to me, because you don't have any of that hump in the draw cycle. It's just a smooth increase all the way until you hit anchor. And then, you hit that, and you're aiming, but even with that, you're more focused on the process.
It seems like I was really surprised watching some of those Olympic shooters on how long they hold.
It's amazing on how long some of them hold. And it's...
Because usually of course, that's shooting instinctive, like with 3D and stuff like that. But a lot of those guys pull back as soon as... A lot of them will have a clicker, or they pull back, and as soon as they hit a spot on their face, that arrow's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, and the Olympic deal is a little different. And if you'll watch them a lot of times, and it depends on who it is. And they get away with things sometimes that, just like, you do with shooting a compound, that even though you're not supposed to do it that way, you get away with things.
Right.
But once you hit that clicker, that's where you want to let go of the string, because if you creep forward, you're going to hit low because you've just lost a little bit of poundage behind the arrow. And if you keep pulling farther after the clicker, you're going to hit high.
Yeah. Well, what about, do they have clickers on their bows in the Olympics?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would almost think if they all had clickers and they were all on the line together, that you would hear somebody else's clicker go off.
They're not very loud.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess you could make them heavier, and probably a little more so. But it's not, I mean, it's like standing on the line shooting indoor archery. You've got a lot of noise going on around you.
Dude, how funny would that be?
What about leveling their bow? They don't level?
There's no
level. Okay.
So you've got, if you ever watch their V-bars, they tend to be weighted one way. And everybody's got a natural cant.
Right.
And that's how you sight your bow in.
Okay. Are wrens songbirds?
I think I'd have to have a clicker that went BAM! Just to throw everybody else off. Make them shake a little bit.
Because it's illegal to kill songbirds in Missouri.
The only person this is bothering is you.
I'm just hearing her going off over and over again.
And as soon as we start the podcast, I'm going to go to sleep.
I was going to say, isn't that supposed to be a nice, soothing thing for us this Saturday morning?
I hate everything. I should be in the mountains. It's 70 degrees. I'm sweating. I should move the mountains that way. Maybe I wouldn't have to work out. I'll just keep from sweating.
It's either cicadas or it's wrens. That's all right.
I'm going to go on a rant in a minute, but it's going to be about you.
So what?
Grumpy old
man. You want me to
man.
go next, or are you going next?
Go ahead.
Well, this week I shot my broadheads. I shot them from 20 all the way out to 60 or 65. I don't remember. And because I set my sight pins up on 25, 35, and 45, and then my bottom pin is a slider. So I don't know why I did that. I don't know. Just to be cool. And
it didn't help.
But when I got back to, I always felt like there was just a little bit of something going on in my arrow as it was going downrange. And so when I got it out the other day and put up a vertical tape, and it was starting to just drift very slightly. I mean, not huge, but very slightly off to the left. So I moved my rest over to the right a little bit, and I moved it too far.
Define a little bit for our listeners.
For a little bit, I'm talking probably
16th.
an eighth of an inch.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, no, it probably wasn't that much. But it may have been because they started hitting about 2 inches to the right of the tape then.
Yeah, I bet.
And so I had to bump it back just a little bit. So when we're talking about moving your rest when you're doing something like that, we're talking a 16th or a 32nd of an inch.
Sometimes it's a matter of just loosening it up and tightening it back down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost imperceptible.
Yeah. So they started flying better then. So then I got my broadheads out, and I was shooting at a vertical tape too. And when I got out to 65 yards, one would be in the tape, and one was about 4 inches to the right. So that was on my first shot. So I go up there and I grab them and I check the arrows. Because I have my arrows numbered. So I shot the 4 inches to the right first, and it hit in the tape. So then I pulled the other one up. Thought, well, it just must have been me. Pulled it up again, shot 4 inches to the right. So yeah, I'm starting to think, crap, what's going on?
And this is at 60 or 65 yards?
Yeah, this is 65 yards. And so...
But you probably won't take that shot when we go hunting anyway.
Yeah, I will. And so... so...
Fred, there's going to be some wounded antelope.
No, there's not.
Go ahead, hit him in the leg.
Anyway, I'd been struggling with getting my bow level. And I felt like I was having to kind of twist it a little bit, can it a little bit to get the bow, I was having to move the bow a little bit at full draw to get it level, And
having to moving it to the right, and you're a right-handed shooter?
I don't remember which side I had to move it to.
Usually it's rolled too much to the right, and you have to pull it back to the left.
I think it was the other way. I forget which one it was. But anyway, I let down. I got back to 65 yards again. I let down, and I really concentrated on getting my hand position set right on my bow. Drew back, tried it out. The bow was just like perfectly level as when I drew it back. Let down, concentrated on getting my hand position set again. Did that a couple times where I felt like I was getting too far over this way. And with me, for some reason, I have to really get it right on that, right in there. And
where's right in there? This is a podcast.
On that
like to tell everybody.
Thumb pad?
Yeah, the thumb pad, but there's kind of a bone in there you can feel,
Yeah, there's two of them right in there.
Mine's the farthest one over for me to keep.
The farthest over towards
my
the outside
thumb.
of your hand, toward your thumb.
For me to get my bow level. So I concentrated on setting it up there, pulled back, and I put both the broadheads in the tape. And by tape, I'm talking
electrical tape.
Duct tape, not electrical tape.
So today, after the podcast, we'll work on your grip because you're obviously doing it wrong.
I am.
We'll fix it for you.
Well, explain to the listeners how to find that.
What do you mean?
In their hand.
You tell them.
Well, when you're talking about on that thumb pad, if you're too far towards your thumb, you can watch it. You can push on it with your other hand, and you can watch it collapse your thumb.
Right.
You go too far the other way, and you can watch it collapse your hand. But if you find that right pressure point in the middle,
right,
you can feel where those two bones come together.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything to your hand, and that's where you want your grip pressure at.
Sweet.
So you'd shoot better, Jack, if we cut your thumb off.
Maybe.
You see what I'm saying?
Could be a rough afternoon for you, my friend.
It's right in there in that soft spot. You can feel it because these bones actually, when they come in, they don't come in. They're not like this. They come in and
twist. Yeah.
And they're right in there.
Huh. I never thought about that before.
Yeah, you can find it, and it will push right on the back there.
Yeah.
And you can find those pressure points, but you get too far out here, it's,
right.
It does that or that.
Yeah. Huh. But it just shows you the little things. I mean, and your grip is not a little thing, but, it's, and it's misnamed. It shouldn't be called grip because you don't want to grip anything. But
it should be just a hand rest.
Yeah.
You guys are getting... What'd you do yesterday?
We did a little filming on shooting up close in a ground blind.
I saw that.
Because people have a tendency to... if you think about it, your sights are set in a vertical line, and they are going down toward, they're moving down farther longer.
Down farther with higher yardage.
With higher yardage because you have to raise your bow up to get the arrow to arc into your target. So people feel like, okay, there's my 20-yard. If I'm moving down to 15 yards, I'd have a pin on top of that. If I'm moving down to 10 yards, I'd have a pin on top of that. If I'm moving down to 5 yards, a pin on top of that, And we actually had a target set. We didn't really measure it, but it was about 3 yards. So they would think, well, there's a deer at 3 yards. I need to hold my 20-yard pin pretty well at the bottom of that deer's body, or at least towards the bottom of the kill zone. But if you do that, you're either going to wound it like Gary did yesterday in the video, or you're going to miss it entirely.
And shoot under it, yeah.
And why is that?
It's just if you can think about this, typically that starts when you get below under 10 yards.
Okay.
You would your 20 at 10 yards. At 10 yards, you would hold it just slightly low. But once you get inside of 10, your arrow. Remember, this is archery.
Mm-hmm. It arches.
So even though you don't think it is. The trajectory starts out going up.
And that's what Gary was talking about. Your arrow is below your sight.
Mm-hmm. And
if you think of a vertical line going straight from your sight to the point on the target you want to hit, the arrow starts out below it, rises above it, and then comes back down into where you want to hit on longer ranges. Mm-hmm. Where if you have those short ranges, it doesn't have time to get above that sight line.
Exactly. It's not even climbed to the level of the pin yet.
Right.
So that's what you're working with.
Yeah.
I know Gary said last night he was at 35 yards, hitting in the kill zone.
Yeah.
I played with it at home last night on a little bunny target, with a dime size X.
Right.
And on my hunting bow, 50 yards, put it in at 9 feet.
Yeah.
A measured 9 feet.
Right.
Was center of the X was with it on 50.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't think about where this might come into play. Say you're in a tree stand, and you have an animal come in, and he's straight down under you. Mm-hmm. I think if you're listening to this, go to your bag and stand 3 feet away from it, 1 yard, and shoot down at it, and see where you have to put your sight to hit a small dot.
Right.
Because like with me, it's at 3 feet, it's like 73 yards.
Yeah.
It's most folks don't think about that.
Right.
Well, with the speed of the bow will make a difference on that too. On how much?
Yeah, to a point. But once you start getting to anywhere into normal range or arrow speed, it's not going to be that.
You were hitting at 35 yards, but we were shooting at the heart on that deer, which is it's
4 inches tall, 3 inches wide.
Yeah, it's oblong, but if you put it in a circle, it'd be the size of a grapefruit. So at 35 yards, you're gonna you drill it, but. That's just something everybody's got to go out and play with, go out and experiment with it. Because especially if you hunt out of a ground blind, or like Thunder was saying, and we didn't even touch on that in the video, you're sitting in a tree stand and a nice buck walks right underneath you. You need to know what pin you need to use.
If you're a typical guy using a pin sight that, say, has a pin for 20, 30, 40, and 50, you're going to use your 50-yard pin.
Right. Because
that's going to put you in the kill zone. If you use your 20 and say he's directly under you and your bow is running, would that be parallel?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If it was parallel down him and you use your 20, you're going to hit way back of where you're aiming.
Yeah.
So.
And another thing we didn't talk about is Gary was using a slider sight with a single pin slider. If a deer comes in at 3 yards, you're not going to have time to change that down to 50. You need to be practicing whatever you have that set on. If you have it set in the blind on 20 yards or 30 yards or whatever, you need to put a target out there right in front of your blind and practice where you need to hold the 20 or 30 yard pin in order to hit where you want to hit on that animal.
Well, for that matter too, go ahead and set your bow or set your pin at a certain distance. And to be safe, 30 yards is about right in a tree stand. I mean, give or take. So practice shooting, at 30 yards or at 20 yards with your 30-yard pin, or at 40 yards with your 30-yard pin. Just get used to it in case you get caught off guard and you got to grab it and go.
Oh yeah, that's most definitely. Yeah.
Well, that's what. Yeah, I mean, typically I've hunted with a single pin for forever, and I set my sight at 25 yards, and I can shoot out to 40 with it.
What do you want?
Fill that cup.
Hot.
Sitting over there in the sun.
Do you guys need to move? You guys are sitting in the sun.
I'm okay for now.
Or we can pause for a second and set up another umbrella.
We may have to do that in a few minutes, but we're okay for now.
But
we'll finish this segment on what we did, and then we'll set an umbrella up for you guys. I'm good.
But one of the things, when an animal walks directly in front of you, like you said, you're in a ground blind. Mm-hmm. The majority of people, when they get amped up and they're excited and the animal's right there and they're in a hurry, put your pins on the kill zone, and you're going to be in the kill. You're going to be in the kill zone of that animal.
Right. Yeah.
You may not be gnats, behind in it, but put, most people with their 3 or 4 pins, you put it in the middle of the kill zone and let it go.
Them up. Yeah, correct.
So,
yep. I may play with a single pin sight next year. I'm getting old and my eyes aren't getting very good.
Dude, it is so easy. It's so much simpler.
You'll like it.
I've used them before, but I think I'm going to play with one next year.
Literally, literally, it's like he's 30 yards. Yeah, I mean, you're talking a pin width.
Yeah.
You can hold dead on out to 30 with it at 25.
And if you have something at 40 yards on, most 90% of the time you're going to have time to adjust your sight.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
No, look at all the.
And if
all
you
the time in the world
you don't need
year.
to be taking that shot.
Right. Yeah.
We probably could have videoed another 5 or 10 minutes last year before I shot.
Oh yeah.
'Cause that deer was just out there eating. So we had.
Yeah.
We waited for 2 or 3 minutes after we saw him.
Yeah,
I even
because
picked
I
up
was
my bow,
getting some very exciting footage of a raccoon,
which was never on the
and
video.
you made me turn around, and I know I never did get him in the.
Never did find the raccoon.
I was attempting to get some very exciting footage of a raccoon because that's what people want to see. There's deer kills all the time.
Well, that and possums.
Yeah, but I got told something a long time ago that makes a lot of sense.
What?
Uh-oh.
Is when you've got an animal coming in, you take the first good shot you have, because you don't. If it's something that that you want, if he's the one you want, you don't know what may happen when you say, "Oh, I'll wait for him to walk this way." You don't know that.
Well, that got me.
A deadfall may fall out of a tree next to you, and scare him, and he runs off.
What was weird on that video of the deer I killed, Jack was 3 or 4 feet above me. I mean, your feet basically were at eye level with my head.
That's pretty good.
And
You made that shot with him standing on your shoulders. That's awesome, dude.
The hard part was getting turned in the tree.
The hard part.
Without him falling off?
You couldn't see it on video, but I had to climb out of my tree stand, go around the tree, and stand on a limb. That's where I shot. But
The hard part was
actually,
I told Gary he could only shoot does, and when I saw he was going to shoot that buck, I was kicking him in the head while he was the whole time. But he still made the shot.
practice. No, but anyway, he's 3-4 feet above me, and he's aiming. He's looking down at what most people can't see. You said take the first shot opportunity you have. I couldn't shoot. If you look at the video, that one little limb that comes out was directly between me and the deer. I could not shoot it. If I put my pin on it, and we did it after the deer walked off, you put my pin at where that deer was standing, I would have had to shoot at that limb. Yeah. I'm not shooting at that limb.
Well, one of them little finger-sized branches cost me the one shot I've ever had at a Boone and Crockett-sized deer.
I hit a branch
that I
and
saw
missed
in
one.
low light, and I didn't see the branch, and broke a shot. 14 yards, maybe.
Yeah.
But in the low light, I didn't see this little bitty branch and it was right in front of where I was aiming. Arrow clipped it and it went right under that deer.
We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I missed one because I hit a branch.
Yeah. Well, you were talking earlier about taking the first available shot over there on our land where that 2-man stand is that you hunted out of with Caleb last year during youth season. That 2-man stand used to not be there, and I had a tree stand there, and it was just one of those special times where the does were in and they were rutting hard, and this doe came through, and she had several bucks with her and chasing her, and she came up on top of me, up the hill from me, and this nice buck, it probably been the biggest buck I killed with my bow, came through below me. And I knew the way he was going, and he was looking up at her, I knew he was going to go past me, because I could have shot him down there at 25 yards probably. And I knew he was going to come around me, and I was going to shoot him at 15. I should have shot him at 25. He got up the hill, and I had to turn in my tree stand, and I don't know if he heard me turn or if he just sensed something, because he never did look at me, but he just got up the hill. He may have scented me, now that I think about it. He probably did scent me. And he got up the hill, and he just stood there right behind a tree. And that doe was right in front of him. But he never did panic, and he just slowly turned, walked out of my life.
Yep.
Now, 5 minutes later, one not as good as him, but still a good enough buck that I shot it, 10-pointer, came through, and I shot him right where I should have shot the big one, and killed him, and he dropped right in his tracks. But just goes to show you need to, like you were saying, take the first available shot.
Well, see, I got that advice. The deer I just was referring to, that my arrow hit the branch, I got that advice after this deer, because that deer had come in that morning. I hadn't been in the stand 5 minutes. Came in on me and come right to the bottom of my tree. And I think I've told you the story in the past. But he was underneath my tree. I'm talking at the base of my tree for a good 5, 6, 7 minutes.
Yeah.
But I had always said I will never take a straight down shot and spine a deer, And I thought, and in my mind, I was like, he's going to walk out either direction he walked out, I would have a shot at him.
Unless he walked back.
And keep in mind, this deer, when he came in, I counted 7 heavy points on one side, and I stopped looking at his head.
Wow.
I mean, he was the biggest deer I've ever seen out in the wild. Mm-hmm. And
is this up north?
Yeah, this was up north. And I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited, and the shot I took was 14-yard broadside.
Yeah.
But I didn't see that little bitty branch in the
Jeez.
low light. And I shot, and the arrow went under him. He didn't even spook that much.
Yeah.
But walked right out and around, and he was at 50 yards before he ever came out from behind any kind of cover, and he walked away. And that was right there. He was a highly educated deer, even more so at that point. Never saw him again.
He didn't
one
get
of the
that
best
big
hunts
by
you ever
being
had,
stupid.
wasn't it?
And had I taken that shot, I could have pinned him to the ground.
Yeah.
Would you take it next time?
Yep. Yep.
Attaboy, Jimmy.
That was another question I got posed to me. If you were hungry, would you have taken that shot? If you had to have his meat, would you have taken that shot? Well, yeah.
This is what we just proved. Somebody that tinkers and practices as much as he does, you can still change his mind. It can happen.
Yep.
You can get in there and you can change his mind.
Archery is a constant learning experience. I mean,
It constantly evolves. I mean, it's your archery shot is like a golf swing. Things can deteriorate without you even realizing it.
yep.
Just ask Tiger Woods.
And the older you
yeah.
get, the worse it gets.
No,
And I didn't mean
no
that
kidding.
bad either, but I mean, great golf swing, all of a sudden something changes and no golf swing.
Yeah.
So
That was the one thing Griv told me when I went out and saw him. He said the older you get, you have to have more time. You have to have more string time
Yeah.
because you don't have the muscle memory that you did 20 years ago.
And I don't see as well, and I can't hold as well as what I did 5 years ago even.
that's because you're
So-
physically not able to hold the bow as long as you used to.
Yeah, but Jack, I'm going to tell you something. My hold right now is as good as it's ever been.
Is it?
It is. So that you haven't been, you've been hurt, you've had back surgery, and you've been fighting a lot of pain for a long time.
Yep.
So that right there is an extreme part of your hold.
Right. Yep.
So once you get your bow set to where it needs to be and you're in shooting shape, you'll be able to hold as good as you ever did.
Yeah. I hope so.
You're
Yeah. Because you're right. I've only been shooting for a month.
Yeah.
So
and you're considerably younger than I am.
what, by a year? How
No,
old are you?
54.
Oh,
Oh,
5
you
years.
are
Holy cow!
considerable.
Dang. Yeah, you
Kidding,
are old.
both you guys are.
Jeez.
You guys probably graduated high school before
We're
I
going to
was born.
need. We might as well go ahead and put out a shout for a new technical guy for the BowDudes because this one, ours could drop the bucket any minute, kick the bucket any minute.
He's
So,
practically dead.
I know. So if there's any young guys out there that want to be the technical editor on the BowDudes podcast, just let us know. Did we cover you? What you did?
Yeah, we talked about what we did yesterday. That was close enough.
Oh,
No,
about
but
it.
we haven't heard about it. I haven't heard. What have you been doing in archery this week, Gary?
I came up here and did a video yesterday with Jack. He stood outside the blind where it was cooler and stuck the fat guy in the blind. He was helping me lose weight. Like I don't get hot enough at work. Jack's helping me lose weight yesterday. But
It's 71 degrees, and I was bitching to my wife this morning about how much I was sweating.
yeah, but she
71 degrees and 120% humidity. No, it's not that bad.
it
They're a
actually
week
feels
and a
kind
half.
of good out here.
You saw the picture that I took inside that
Emptying
trailer.
that trailer. Oh yeah.
I was loading that trailer.
You had to load all that by yourself.
Well, they set each drum on the back of the trailer with a forklift, but
Yeah.
then I've got to take a drum cart and
Yeah.
and place it. And I had 20 some that I had to double stack, and it was 100 degrees out that day, and sun beating down on top
How
of
do
that
you
trailer.
double stack them?
Pick them up and put them up there.
What do they weigh?
Well,
Are they empty or are they?
some of the ones, if they're say under 150 pounds, I mean just like bucking a hay bale,
Yeah. Huh. You're tough.
So, but that's but once they get above that, ain't enough of me to wrestle them around.
Right.
He barely weighs $150 soaking wet.
Are you? Do
I
you
got
guys?
you covered. If you need another 100, I got you.
Do you want to put up an umbrella, or are you guys good?
I'm going to melt if we don't put up an umbrella.
All right. I'm just going to pause it, and then we'll go right back to where we started.
Okay.
All right. Through the magic of radio, is like we never left. We got the prima donnas set up because they were a little hot.
Yeah,
So-
as you said over there in your shade.
Yeah, it wasn't just hot. We needed sunglasses. It was so bad over here.
So
I was glistening again. Not twice in 2 days.
You glistened.
I didn't sweat.
today we've had several requests
That just sounds a little weird, Gary.
I know.
to kind of go back over blank bailing, blind bailing, because we've started to kind of cover them a few times, and then in typical BowDudes fashion, we've gone off on tangents and forgot. And so, first of all, I guess I would say, Thunder, what is the difference between blind bailing versus blank bailing?
Well, I think different people might have different opinions, but the way I look at it, blind bailing is actually right up against to where you can't miss the target.
Mm-hmm.
And once you come to full draw, make sure your arrow's on your rest, you close your eyes, and you feel yourself into your anchor. You feel everything about the shot. And that way you can actually feel it in your mind as you go through it until the shot breaks.
Okay.
That way you have no reference at all in this process other than what you're feeling. And you do that over and over and over again to where you recognize that feeling, to where when you get in a pressure situation and something doesn't feel right, you know something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you may have to, if it's in a tournament situation or whatever, you may, let down and start over. Now, blank bailing, that is just shooting at a blank target, but you've got your eyes open. You're working through your process, but you still have somewhat of a visual on what you're doing.
Is that and that's more to keep the anxiety of having a target, having to try to aim at a target?
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it this way. Look at the number of people who love to go shoot 3D
mm-hmm.
and hate to shoot dots,
right.
Any kind of target. Why is that? Because you really don't have a reference so much on a 3D animal. You're shooting at an area.
Yeah.
So your mind is more relaxed. Once you introduce that dot, the anxiety level comes up some because all of a sudden there's something right in front of you that, I have to hit this.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people have issues with that.
Right.
So that's working on the blank bail and the blind bail both. You're working on your form, on the entire process. You're working on muscle memory.
Okay.
Everything that you count on in a pressure situation.
So how would you kind of touched on it again, but what about you've talked about muscle memory. How do you react under pressure? You kind of touched on that. And help with target panic. How is this going to help you cure your target panic? And if we're talking about target panic, are we talking about blind bailing or are we talking about blank bailing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a process. I mean, target panic shows its ugly head in so many different ways
mm-hmm.
with so many different people. Some people, they literally can't put a pin or a dot on a target without freaking out. The anxiety level is just, it's like, oh my God, it's there, I got to shoot now.
That was me.
And some people, they get it and they'll put their pin up there and it will sink to 6 o'clock on the dot. They can't get it back up in the middle forever, and they hold 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 and they hold, and then they jerk it up in the middle and rip the shot off.
Mm-hmm.
There are many different forms of it. So everybody's got their own process and theories or whatever, for fixing target panic. But one of the first things is working on that muscle memory. And when you're not looking at it, you're convincing yourself and you say, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're physically reinforcing your mind that my body is capable of doing this. Right? So then you blind bail for a while. Then you blank bail and you're opening your eyes and you're just on a blank target. Okay? You're looking at the target, no sight on your bow, nothing, but you're looking at the target. You're working through the process. And you do that until your mind is like, okay, I can do this, and I'm looking at it. Then you might introduce a sight back up on there, but not like, say, with just an open scope housing with no dot, no lens, no pin, no anything. Just something that brings in a little more reference, mm-hmm. to where you're at. And you do that up close until your mind is convinced, hey, I can do this too. I've got a scope on here, and I can do this without freaking out. And it's reinforced in your mind that I can do this right?
So you're talking about at least a full day process, if not 2.
Yeah. Depending on where you're at, your experience level, how bad the thing is, this could be months.
Or 4 or 5 years.
Well,
Just saying.
it's a lot of it depends on it until you come to the point that it's like being an alcoholic. The first thing you have to do is admit that you have the problem,
Right.
instead of trying to band-aid it and crutch it and everything else.
Yeah.
So, but you get to that point, and keep in mind what I'm talking about is depending on experience level and how bad you have it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're blank bailing, you've got an empty scope, and you're comfortable with that, then you put a pin in it or a dot on your lens, whatever you've got. And you're doing that up close, and you're putting that dot or that pin right in the middle. You've got that introduced on a blank bail, and you're still good with that. So once you get to that point, then you can put a target up close.
Yeah.
Until you're comfortable shooting at 5 yards or whatever. And then you move back to 7 yards. And you do that until you can do that without anxiety. And then just in a couple yard increments until you're back to 20. Because just like Michael told us a long time ago, once you get to 20 yards, your sight picture is pretty much not going, it doesn't vary that much once you get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because like outdoor target archery, your targets get bigger the farther you go back.
Right.
So I think the biggest mistake people make, and we go right back into that ego thing, they don't give themselves enough time to do this.
Yep.
They don't. We live in a microwave society. Everybody wants it right now.
And a lot of guys, I've been there myself. I know a lot of people who's done it. They think they can fix it with a new release, or they can fix it with a new piece of equipment. This is the ticket right here. If I just get this, then I'll be all right. And they may be all right for a day or two, and then they're right back to where they were.
Right.
I know with me, I've battled it before. Well, I think all archers can be in a continuous battle with it on different aspects of it. It may not be to the degree where you can't even put your pin on the target or whatever, but I know with me, I'd come outside sometimes and I just couldn't get my release to fire. It would take forever for it to fire. And you guys have kind of poked fun at me and stuff and before about how long I hold and things like that. And sometimes it's just, I'm wanting my release to fire. It's just not firing. But then you come in, so then you say, well, I want to take some poundage off this release. And then you come inside and you're right in front of a bail and you're blank bailing and you get back and you just barely get your finger wrapped around the release and pow, it fires. Or you put the poundage back on and indoors there's no target, there's no pressure, you don't care that your pin's bouncing around, boom, goes off right away.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go back outside and you might be okay for a couple shots, and then you start to get tired and your pin's moving around, and all of a sudden you're back to where you start to get that tension and everything else, and your release isn't firing again.
As soon as you introduce pressure
Mm-hmm.
or a little bit of anxiety. Yep.
And anymore, when I get to that point, I just tell myself, I don't care where this arrow hits, and I concentrate on pulling off a few good shots. And it's kind of amazing that if you do that, a lot of times the arrow hits right where you want it to hit.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah. And so, it's just, everybody probably needs to spend time in front of a blank bail no matter what level they're at. And I think most of the top archers,
They do.
So
They do. You talk to a lot of, pros.
Mm-hmm.
And they spend a lot of time doing that.
Right.
Because it's being able to make that, there's many of us that can make beautiful shots day in and day out. Right up until the point where you introduce a lot of pressure.
Right.
And then at that point, you tense up, you tighten up, and nothing happens.
Right.
And then you start forcing things, and bad things happen. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you spend enough time doing that to where you can do it under pressure.
Yeah.
That's when good things start to happen.
So before we go on with some of these other aspects of blank bailing, and you kind of covered going from blind to blank with a sight or with no sight and a sight and
I think kind of what I did is introduced a chain, like working through a panic, a progression, to get you back to where you're shooting good.
Yeah. So I guess on the blind bailing part of it, I would think of that more as working on every aspect of your shot to where it's ingrained in your mind, where you're doing it subconsciously or somewhat subconsciously is kind of what I think about when it comes to blind bailing. You're standing in front of a bail. You're making sure your feet are set correctly. You're making sure your grip's set correctly. Basically you're kind of going through your whole shot sequence in a very conscious and methodical level. And
I'm sitting here shaking my head, yes, like anybody can hear me.
And then feeling
I heard the head rattle.
And then feeling with your eyes closed what a perfect shot is going to feel like. That's how I would kind of define the blind bailing part of it.
I mean,
with your eyes closed right in front of it, perfecting your shot, basically.
It is. I mean, you're going all the way. Like I said, you don't want to draw your bow with your eyes closed because your arrow might fall off your wrist, especially if you're shooting a blade or something. Mm-hmm. But you're watching it to full draw. But at that point, when you close your eyes, you're feeling, you are consciously working on a smooth draw. And then when you hit your anchor, you're consciously feeling your shoulders drop and relax. You're consciously having a soft, bow hand, to where your hand is good. You're consciously finding yourself into your anchor. You're consciously feeling the string on your nose, and different things like that.
And I think the main thing is you're consciously learning how to execute the shot once you get to go through all those things. Because we've talked about this before, when it gets to where you're shooting at something, a target, an animal, or whatever, your conscious effort wants to be on looking at the spot you want to hit.
Right.
Or aiming, however you want to define that.
Right.
And then you want to subconsciously be able to fire your bow at that point without going back and forth between I'm looking at my spot. Let me think why my release isn't firing. I'm going to go back to my release for a second. Do I need to add a little more pressure? Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at that animal some more or that target some more. Now, I really feel like this should be firing, which if you get to that point, you should be letting down anyway on a target. You probably don't have that luxury on an animal.
Right.
But am I going off base there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because, everybody has got, we've talked about this on mental game things. And from last winter, the things that I'm doing in my head are totally different than what I was doing then. Because last year when I got all, when I really started looking into that aspect of it, that was at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And I've started, there's things that I'm doing a little bit different. Each individual's got to do the things that he or she requires to have them perform at their best. Mm-hmm. So it's everybody's talk or self-talk or mental process, mental game, whatever you want to call it, is probably going to be a little different.
Right.
Just depends on your personality, everything else. So.
Yeah.
And once your subconscious takes over, there's not a whole lot you can do to mess that up. Unless you're just sitting there and you're going out of your way to outthink it. Like yesterday,
it's kind of like
yesterday when we were shooting. When we got ready to leave, I said, grab one arrow apiece and we're going to shoot them. Mm-hmm. We ended up shooting two, but
I shot a lot better than what you did, but we won't go into that part.
Weren't they all 10s?
Yeah, but mine was a better 10.
Okay. I forgot about that. But anyway, when I shot my first one, I said, man, that didn't feel like I wanted it to. But the arrow was still perfectly in the kill zone because I was focused on my target and I did my shot exactly like I wanted to, and it shot exactly where I was looking. Because I looked at his arrows, I'm not going to hit it, and or not try to hit his arrow. The shot went off perfectly without even thinking about it. And it went off faster than I normally shoot. I don't know why that was. I think I anchored up, it felt perfect, and I started pulling through, and it went off. But it turned out to be a good shot. We shot 2 more, and were they even better shots or
I know mine was
the same?
If mine could possibly be better, my second shot was.
And I think my third shot or my second shot, didn't it split your 2 right where it needed to
I
go?
don't remember that.
You
I
don't
have to go back and look at the
short-term
video.
memory
Oh, we
loss?
didn't video that one part.
You can remember the first part and the last part, but not the middle?
I remember my shots were awesome. That's all I remember. So,
And he's the editor.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
why would you need to blank bail then?
Because archery is a sport that involves movement, just like golf is. And I think probably, if you remember back when you first started shooting, you didn't know anything about it, right? Mm-hmm. You basically just kind of went through the motions on what you'd been told to do. And there was days that you'd just be wadding arrows, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you're feeling real good about things, and then you start to learn a little more. And then you start having expectations. Like, wow, I can shoot pretty good, you know. And then you introduce expectations, which introduces pressure, and then it's a snowball from there.
Yeah.
So that's why I said even the top pros spend time on a blank bail, just working on their basic form, their basic process. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing but a muscle memory thing. Just to, like a golf swing can deteriorate and you not even notice it. That's why a lot of people, I mean, even your top pros have coaches.
Oh, yeah.
Especially your Olympic guys.
Yep.
They live, I mean, our top archers that are going to the Olympics next, well, they're already in Rio, but they live under the tutelage of coaches day in and day out. That's what they do.
It's hard for you to see for yourself, even if you're looking in a mirror with a bow, what you're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm. Because it can be a minor thing that you start doing different.
Yep.
And if you're using a handheld release, like a hinge or a button, either one, differences in hand position, and I'm talking angle, say versus your release is totally vertical, flat up against the side of your face, versus being out at a 45 degree, versus being level to the ground. That'll change the impact of your arrow.
Right.
On a hinge, I've been working a lot on relaxing through the shot, making it more like a recurve. But if you relax through the shot versus rotating the release and pulling through it, it changes your point of impact. It's the smallest little things that will change where your arrow's landing. And that's why you have to be consistent in every little thing you do.
And to get consistent, you should
practice. Blind bail, blank bail. That's how you do. You consciously, and I shouldn't even say practice. That's training.
Yeah.
Then there's a difference between practice and training.
Right.
Yeah. You can, I believe anyway, you can kick off and kind of jumpstart target panic, which would need you to do the blind bailing and the blank bailing and all that. But I think you can, by changing equipment, stuff like that, you can just completely get your whole, not shot sequence, but get all the rest of you completely messed up to where, just you completely lose your mind and have to start over as far as learning to shoot again. Because when I had my Browning Illusion, we shot.
Is this a jab against Pib?
No.
Okay.
You kidding? He'd be blank bailing all the time. But
the changing equipment part.
Yeah. Well, I know. But when I had my Browning
he
Illusion,
doesn't just change equipment. I mean, we're talking. He changes entire rigs.
the day before the class,
and he still shoots good.
Yes, he does.
But, when I went from shooting that Browning Illusion, which I shot good, didn't really know anything about it, just shot it. I could shoot it. I got better equipment. You start overthinking your shot, and then all of a sudden you think, well, I can't shoot. And you're right, you can't. Because once it goes negative in there, it takes forever to get it back.
Well, here's something, too, with, and we're starting to go off on these tangents where this doesn't really have anything to do with blank bailing. But you say that you got, quote-unquote, better equipment, but didn't shoot as good. That was your statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be something, and even your top pros, some of them like different styles of cams, draw curves than others, right? And no matter what bow they shoot, they tend to look for something that's got a similar draw curve, a similar cam profile. Some people like with a Hoyt. I shot GTXs on my podium for almost a year, and they were okay.
Cam, so people,
yeah, GTX cam, which is a softer, a little bit. It's not as aggressive cam as a spiral.
Mm-hmm.
But I have spirals back on my bow now because I just shoot them better. I have a better end result, and I'm more comfortable with them for whatever reason. It's.
Does your release fire easier?
No.
No.
The thing about the holding weight versus release firing thing has a lot to do. I don't think people realize this. Even if I go back and forth, I have a Pro Edge that I shoot for 3D, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got a little bit spongier wall than my spirals do on my podium. So I have to set my release a little different on how it fires to make it be like the same time frame because just of the difference in holding weight. Now, if you go back and forth, say you've got a bow with 20 pounds of holding weight, and then you pick up and shoot the exact same release on a bow that only has 15 pounds of holding weight, you're going to have a hard time getting that release to fire. Because what you're used to, the tension pulling against it, or you pulling against the release or whatever, it's just totally different. So I think that's where that comes from more than anything.
Well, I went through 2 or 3 bows before I found one that I was comfortable with.
Well,
so it took a while, but
when the next time
and sights, I think that had a lot to do with mine too.
On what you're comfortable with looking at,
yeah. And as easy as it sounds, like what Pip said that time, it's just what your brain liked.
It is.
And when you find something your brain likes, it's good.
I've tried circles, I've tried pins, I've tried dots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my favorite thing is an LP light. That's my favorite aiming aperture, and it doesn't matter what kind of, sight I'm shooting. So Larry Popa out there, your LP light's a good deal.
All right, Jack, what you got? Thundercast pretty much summed it up.
I'm Instagramming right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's Instagramming.
One thing
he's social media-izing.
One thing I haven't used for a while that I should have done several times today.
What's that?
Let me see.
The mute button for you?
No.
Oh. Thundercast.
I haven't used that for a while.
Thundercast.
So, well, I think you covered pretty much of it. Did you go through the release aids while blank bailing?
Well, that's part of what your blank bailing is. So when I said about feeling through everything, depending on what type of release you're shooting, if you're using an index finger, say like a mic, when you start, you have to build pressure on that trigger until it fires, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're building pressure on the bow, but getting light on your finger that's wrapped around the trigger, the release will never fire, correct?
Right.
And that's where I think people, you were talking earlier about, your release firing too easy sometimes.
Yep.
And you got to find that happy medium to where you're comfortable with it, but not afraid of it. Right. Because as soon as you get afraid of it, you can pull and pull, but if you're lightening up on that trigger as you're pulling, it's never going to fire. With a hinge, if you're shooting it and say you're shooting it by relaxing through the shot, you can start out and you feel tension kind of in your forearm and in your bicep, but as you can feel your arm and everything relax, and you can feel your hand stretch. And this isn't really something you see, but you feel the muscles relax. And as that happens, that release rotates and fires. That's the whole process, or if you pull through the shot, some guys, they just rotate a hinge. But you do that with your eyes closed, and you can feel the release rotate. Some people like that movement. So it's if you're shooting a thumb button, you're feeling how much pressure you're putting on the trigger. You're feeling, as you start to build pressure, you're making sure that you're transferring that pressure to the trigger and not just to the back wall of the bow. Because you could add 20 pounds more of pressure against the back wall of that bow, but if you're shooting a thumb button and you don't have any, anything on the trigger, it ain't going to fire.
Right.
And you'll see people hell, you remember 10 years ago with me, some of the things. I'd be standing there trying to get a release to fire, and I mean, my arm's shaking and my shoulders are quivering, and it won't go.
You feel like, especially if you're tensed up, you feel like you're pulling that bow apart. You feel like it's going to blow up.
And nothing's happening.
So
that's one of the good things about the blind bail is because you're feeling through it.
Yeah.
So whether it's an index finger or a thumb button or a hinge or an evolution, like Gary's been shooting, with him, he can feel that the pressure build on that release until it breaks with his eyes closed.
Yeah.
Without introducing anything else into his brain, you're just feeling the process.
Why don't more people just shoot evolutions?
They get impatient.
That would be some of it. I think it's the same reason. You go back to the same thing that we said earlier, the 3D versus the dots. People,
are they scared it might go off when they don't want it to go off?
Maybe. That's why some people don't shoot hinges. I mean, they'll tell you I know people who practice with hinges. I've done it in the past. Practice with a hinge, but shoot a thumb button.
And probably, like we were talking about, in a pressure situation, you're either not actually pulling and adding weight, or you're so amped up you're adding too much weight, and you let off the safety and it fires.
Yep,
is probably what. Maybe that's why people are worried about.
It is, so, yeah. And it's. But once again, if you go back to the blind bail, to where you're just for thousands of repetitions, you're feeling every little thing into place. That gets just worked into your brain to where, you do it the same way every time.
Right.
So that's kind of the whole purpose of it. And then it's when you go back and do it, there's a lot of guys training is every day in their training, they'll shoot 50 blank bail shots before they do anything else, or blind bail or whatever. That's part of their daily training process. So it's, different people use it in different ways, but I kind of think that's why.
Yeah.
It reintroduces every time you pick up that bow, it reintroduces the basics on your form. So.
Well, sweet. I think we pretty well covered it. Do you have anything else you can think of?
No. I mean, and
we're gonna
all of this is subjective and opinions.
Yeah.
It's archery, so.
We're going to go do, I think, a little video on it and, just a few minutes and kind of show how you go through it, what you're doing, and all that, and we'll put it up. So, what are you going to do this week, Gary? What's your plans?
Getting ready to go antelope hunting.
2 weeks, isn't it?
Yep.
Is it under 2 weeks?
Yesterday.
Under 2. Oh, cow.
We leave next
I'm
Friday.
not ready.
Late
2 weeks? Oh, it's only 2 weeks, and you guys are going to be for real Western hunters?
Yep. I'm already a Western hunter.
Yep.
You got your corduroy guide pants all washed up and ready to go?
No, I have a different style.
Oh, you don't have corduroy guide pants?
No, I don't use the corduroy.
I'm a Western hunter.
They make too much of a swishing noise when you walk.
I'm a Western hunter, and I think that to separate myself from guys
You're
like...
a Western hunter with a Northeastern hunter's body.
I'm working on that. I appreciate you bringing the chocolate donuts today.
I'm in the
that's
same
helping
boat.
me a lot.
I'm in the same boat. You didn't even videotape yourself eating a donut.
But I think from now on, to separate myself from Bob and Gary, that I am going to distinguish myself by saying that I am a student of the backcountry.
You want me to comment on that?
I saw that on somebody's that's not original. I saw that on somebody's Instagram page.
You want me to comment on that?
So
or
I'm
going
to make that my own. I'm a student of the backcountry.
I can't wait for you to close that knife on your finger.
It's not sharp enough.
I could
hit it with a hammer, and I don't think it would slice through my finger. I need to sharpen it. What happened? I hit the wrong one. Sorry, Thunder.
You know, kind of the way I look at that is all of this. It's kind of like it's like you're a student of life. It doesn't matter what you do and where you do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you sit home and rot just being a couch potato, shame on you.
Yeah.
You know, we only got one go at this. Make the best of it.
That's what I'm going back elk hunting in September, and I really financially probably shouldn't, but I'm getting ready to turn 50 years old. How many?
Oh gosh!
How many more of these do I have?
You only get to turn 50 once.
Your midlife crisis is setting in. When are you buying a vet?
I keep waiting to show up over here sometime, or you drive up to my house or something in a Corvette.
No, it wouldn't be a Corvette. It'd be a jacked up truck. But I'm kind of to the point now where I don't care about that stuff. The last truck I bought was just a plain Jane one because I'd rather spend the money on gear that I can sell to Bob and Gary later.
We appreciate that. That's why we buy nicer trucks, so we know we're going to get that good gear later.
That works out good for you, too.
No, it doesn't, because the return on his income?
That's not good.
No, it doesn't at all.
But, yeah, I mean, you never know. Even talking about, I've been trying to get in shape. One of the problems I've had.
You're in shape.
And I know people, it's a round shape.
That's a shape.
But
round is a shape.
You'll start working out, and then all of a sudden your legs will be going numb and your back will be killing you. And so
Dude,
I don't know if that's going to change, and that's not an excuse, but
I went grocery shopping the other day, and I spent like $30-something on vegetables. And when I got home, they were all donuts. I don't know what happened, but when I was buying them, I swore I was buying vegetables.
Yeah.
Peppers, all this stuff to cook with.
Well, Bud, I can tell you, about staying in shape and that kind of thing. I mean, from Marine Corps days, I mean, it's just like now my knees and my feet and physically I'm fine, but man, it's like the other day when I twisted my knee. I did a really radical thing when I hurt myself. I turned around.
Yeah.
And my knee went pop, 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 and it's like, all I did was turn around. That's it,
Yep.
And I'm sure when you hurt your back, do you do anything wild?
Nope.
Well, that's not what Debbie said.
It probably...
Is that what them straps hanging from the ceilings were?
No, that's to help me get out of bed in the morning.
I did notice you guys had a new ceiling fan. I had no idea you needed one of those 27-blade industrials in here, though.
Well, that's a good excuse, multi-purposing things.
I didn't have a 250 weight limit like I thought it did.
250?
No, I'm under 250 now. I'm trying to get down in the 30s before the antelope hunt, but
I'm in the 30s.
You took me to Pizza Hut
and
made me Pizza Hut buffet, and you said it was a 12-plate minimum or something like that.
Let me go back. I'm going to read. Just go ahead and keep talking, Jack.
No, I was down to 242, and then you took me to Pizza Hut, and I woke up this morning at 244. So
okay, let me see here.
So I have a month to lose 40 pounds.
250 to 230, and you have a month to lose 40 pounds?
You went down to 190?
I went down to, I don't know. I just went down to.
Hey, here's one of
the
text I got yesterday from Jack. Can you bring donuts in the morning?
Well, here's the thing.
I was expecting biscuits and gravy. What's up with that?
I wanted to do that, but I couldn't. My wife was tired, and her feet hurt when she got off work. I had everything I needed except for the biscuits. I said, "Can you just run by and get some biscuits?" And I could have made homemade ones, but
so you're blaming this on Debbie.
You guys don't mean that much to me, and so
you're blaming this on Debbie.
Yes, I am blaming it on her because.
Okay. And then I got a text this morning. Deb likes chocolate icing.
Like everything else in life, or like everything else with my family, I do everything, drop everything for them. But when it comes to me, they don't worry so much about it.
Hey,
here's another
Mama
one
ain't
yesterday.
happy, ain't nobody happy. If Daddy ain't happy, nobody cares.
That's just a dad thing.
What's the initial right there? Is that a J? So on my phone, that means Jack.
Yeah.
Okay. On that side, I'm heading home. Do you want Pizza Hut buffet? And my response was, sure, I'm headed there, leaving Pibbs.
Well,
okay, that's twice. Can you bring donuts, and do you want Pizza Hut buffet?
I meant to go for the salad, but they didn't have salad out.
I had salad. Yes, they did. I had a salad.
Oh, that must have been over in the corner. I could see it.
In the corner right by the pizza. How can you miss it? We're at Pizza Hut in Plattsburgh.
I'm
It's
gonna
not
do
as
better.
big as your patio.
Just like every year, I get out in Colorado, and it sucks for the first 3 days, and then you walk yourself into shape. That's how it works. I'm not even going to try anymore. So, okay, I think we are about to lose our momentum here. So, if we had momentum. So, do you want to take us out, Gary, or do you want me to do it?
Go to BowDudes.com. Everything you need to know from us is on there.
Where are you going this week?
Where am I going?
Yeah. Are you leaving somewhere? Oh, you're not going to the Classic, are you?
No.
You're not
Oh,
going to
okay.
Tulsa? Are you taking a load of salsa?
That
one never gets old.
I'm going to Tulsa once.
There you go.
Bob was gone today. He's in
Omaha with the family, I think.
Maybe at the zoo.
I don't know. I'm not
And
there.
Vinny's actually down in Branson shooting the Regions Classic.
Is he shooting or is he carrying Julie stuff?
No, I think he's actually shooting.
Is he? Good for him.
Pib is having to work, which has got to be killing him because the ASA Classic is next week.
Yeah, and he was supposed to go to Illinois this weekend, too, to go. Hey, great, thanks. Anyway, he was going to go to Illinois to shoot theirs because a bunch of people came down and shot Missouri's last weekend, so he's not going to make that.
Yep. So, but him and Vinny and Julie and I don't know if Bob's going. Are they going? He's
don't
not
know.
going. That's the
No,
ASA.
Bob's not going because he's going with us the week after.
Oh, yeah. ASA Classic's in. So we'll be shooting our broadheads, pounding a bunch of arrows, getting our clothes ready, all that, getting ready for the antelope hunt in 2 weeks.
How much time have you spent at Kohl's in the last week?
I haven't. None at all.
Good.
And I told her the other day, I said, don't be planning anything the next week, which I got to go do something Sunday. So,
Something tells me that went in one ear and right out
Yeah.
the other.
I said,
She's going to have plans for you the Friday we're supposed to leave, isn't she?
No.
Jack.
Something will happen, though. I guarantee you something will happen. But anyway.
We'll worry about that Friday.
Yep.
Let's just
You
go
have to
fun.
learn to say no.
I know.
It's a simple little word.
Have you seen him and his wife together? One
Yes.
of them outkicked their coverage. The other one, not so much.
Yeah, it's hard to say no.
I know the feeling. Look at that.
Uh-oh. Hey, we're doing
All
a podcast here. All right.
All
See you
right.
later.
See ya.
Bicycle.